Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has convened a security cabinet meeting today to hold a vote on the Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal.
Well, according to media reports, the Prime Minister's office said that the full cabinet will later convene to approve the deal without specifying whether that vote will also be held on Friday or Saturday.
On Thursday, Prime Minister Netanyahu's office accused Hamas of backtracking on parts of the agreement to extort last-minute concessions and vowed to postpone the cabinet vote until the issues were addressed. But later it was confirmed that the cabinet will meet on Friday to decide on this deal.
At least 2 cabinet members have voiced opposition to the ceasefire, with far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir saying that he and his party colleagues will quit the government if it approved the deal.
With an abandoned agreement approved and implemented, we will deliver our letters of resignation to the Prime Minister, and the Otzma Yehudet party will not be part of the government, and we are resigning from it.
In addition to Ben-Gvir, far-right Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich has also opposed the truce, calling it a dangerous deal.
Israelis supporting hard-right lawmakers blocked a highway in Jerusalem denouncing the ceasefire agreement. They marched on a road junction, some with hands painted red. Around 200 demonstrators attended a rally near the Israeli parliament and government ministries.
Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken voiced confidence that the implementation of a ceasefire in Gaza will begin on Sunday. Blinken said him and other officials of the Biden administration were on the telephone to try to resolve issues through mediator Qatar.
On the ceasefire, yes, I am confident, and I fully expect that implementation will begin, as we said, on Sunday. Look, it's not exactly surprising that in a process and a negotiation that has been this challenging and this fraught, you may get a loose end. We're tying up that loose end as we speak. I've been on the phone in one way or another all morning with Brett McGurk, with our Qatari friends, and I'm very confident that this is moving forward, and we'll see the start of implementation of the agreement on Sunday.
At a farewell news conference in Washington, D.C., Blinken's opening remarks were disrupted by 2 activists, with one of them shouting slogans. The outgoing Secretary of State defended Biden administration's policies on Israel's war with Hamas.
You too, Matt. You smirk through the whole thing every day.
The May 31st statement to block the ICJ orders. You blocked the ICJ orders.
Please, sir, respect the process. Thank you.
Oh, respect the process. Respect this process. Well, everybody from Amnesty International, to the ICJ, saying that Israel's doing genocide and extermination, and you're telling me to respect the process. Criminal! Why aren't you in The Hague? Why aren't you in The Hague?
I think one of the lessons that we have to take away is that as resourceful and as powerful as we are, at the end of the day, we can't make decisions for others. They have to make them. They have to make hard choices. They have to take chances. We can do everything possible to push, to prod, to encourage, to support, but ultimately the decision lies with those most directly concerned. That's one thing.
Furthermore, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has said the hostage ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas must be finalized before his inauguration on Monday. In a podcast interview, he said, "We changed the course of it and we changed it fast, and frankly, it better be done before I take oath of office."
The truce announced by mediators Qatar and the United States on Wednesday involves the exchange of Israeli hostages for Palestinian prisoners, after which the terms of a permanent end to the war will be finalized.
Meanwhile, Gaza Civil Defense Agency said Israel pounded several areas of the territory after the deal was announced. killing at least 80 people and wounding hundreds. The Israeli military reported hitting about 50 targets across the territory over the past day.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan expressed concerns about Israel still continuing its attacks on Gaza. He said the Israeli government must not be allowed to violate and exploit the ceasefire.
On the other hand, Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi rebels threatened to keep up their attacks if Israel did not respect the recently announced ceasefire.
We are now being joined by George Kafiro from Washington, D.C. He is the CEO of Gulf State Analytics and professor at the Georgetown University. Welcome to World DNA, Mr. Kafiro.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
Now, Israel will vote today on the ceasefire hostage deal after it was delayed yesterday. It's, however, not clear as to what extent is the holdup. While the U.S. authorities and the officials there, they seem to be optimistic about the ceasefire hostage deal. The question right now being is that, do you think the ceasefire deal will be implemented by Sunday, which is extremely paramount because Trump takes office on January 20th?
Yeah, as the Secretary of State, the outgoing Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, said, it's quite normal at the end of these types of negotiations for these sort of last-minute holdups that create these complications. But I think there's a good chance that everything is going to move ahead on schedule and that it will go into implementation on January 19th. I think President-elect Donald Trump has made it very clear to the Israeli leadership that he wants this deal implemented by the time he is sworn in for his second term. And I think that pressure from President-elect Trump is the main reason why I think that despite this last-minute complication, it's going to go through as planned.
Absolutely, Mr. Cafiero. In fact, we were yesterday talking to Dr. Avner Cohen, and we, in fact, discussed the similar point with him. And he said that the reason, perhaps, that there are some issues that may remain unresolved is because there is pressure to do it before Trump takes office. That being said, do you think that's the reason the negotiations and this deal has hit a snag in this last stage before being implemented?
Well, it's a good question. There's no denying that in the Israeli cabinet, there are ultra far right, sort of fascist right wing figures who have a huge problem with this deal and do not want to see it implemented. These are figures like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir who want to see the war continue until Hamas is decapitated. They want to see Israeli settlements, Zionist settlements built on the ground in Gaza. They do not want the Israeli ground presence to withdraw. So they have their leverage. As we know, obviously, Israel is not a dictatorship with Netanyahu able to make all the decisions. There are these other figures in the government who do have their leverage, and I think they're trying to use it right now to prevent this deal from going forward. But Netanyahu, I think, is going to do what he can to cater to the interests of Donald Trump, who is going to be the new U.S. president for the next 4 years, starting on Monday. And I think when Netanyahu has to make a choice between keeping his coalition together, as much as he wants to do that, and pleasing the incoming U.S. president, I think he's going to elect for working well with Trump, rather than keeping his coalition together in a manner that could possibly upset Trump. I think Netanyahu understands that ironclad support from Donald Trump is not something that Netanyahu should take for granted. Trump is notoriously unpredictable, and Netanyahu understands that.
Right. Just want to take that point forward where you mentioned that there has been pressure from the Trump's administration side. Now, with Trump taking office on January 20th, how does that play into the dynamics of what has happened so far and what might happen in the future? Because there's also many questions being raised on the implementation of the ceasefire deal as well.
Yeah, as I just mentioned a moment ago, Trump is notoriously unpredictable, notoriously There's always a lot of ambiguity from Trump. So it's extremely difficult to predict how everything is going to move ahead. But we should be concerned, in my opinion, about the fact that this deal leaves a number of questions open. There are also a number of loopholes in the deal. And we also need to keep in mind that the Trump administration will be responsible ultimately for enforcing the deal. And that raises so many different questions. You know, if Israel is going to violate the ceasefire, what kind of consequences would the Trump administration make Israel face? We simply don't know that. And then add to the mix so many important questions about governance-related issues in Gaza after the dust settles. So there are many different scenarios that could unfold. Concern I have is that this will ultimately be more of a hostage / prisoner swap instead of an actual ceasefire. I think it's going to obviously be important for people in the U.S. and all over the world to continue to do what they can to put pressure on Israel. We'll have to see how things unfold, though.
Right, Mr. Kafiro, thank you so much for joining us on World DNA with your insights on this story.
Thank you. Good to be with you as always.